Hey everyone, it's Dave. Hope you're good. Just enjoying the holiday here. Again, weather's still pretty much the same. Breezy, cool, grey skies. Sun's not come out last couple of days, but that's good with me because otherwise I just turn bright red and my skin peels. And yeah, we've been lucky with the weather. Show you a little view around. This is the back garden. Look at that, it's lovely, really nice. So yeah, lovely relaxing holiday. Got my little niece and nephew with us, and they're an absolute joy to be around, so it's great. So yeah, what was I going to talk about today? Thought I'd do a little bit of content and I've got a bit of time, got my beer, so we're going out for a meal later on, so I've got an hour or so to chill out. And yeah, I read a comment, I can't remember where it was, it might have on some response to someone's video or on Twitter or something, I can't remember. Anyway, this person said that they used to prefer it when the propaganda was subliminal rather than in your face, and I get that because it's reached such a level of such overt obviousness now that it's funny, but at the same time it's so unhinged that it's quite clear that there's something deeply disturbing going on, which that is what it is, and a lot of people can see through it now. And I think that's what I want to talk about, because the fact that there are still some who can't see that they're being brainwashed blows my mind. It really, really, really blows my mind. I think there's a type of person who has trust in authority, who maybe doesn't have real deep meaning in their lives, doesn't see the mystery in things, doesn't wonder and be in awe with things, and who derives a sense of what would I say, attachment, I guess, to any story, and it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's spun by the mainstream media and by the mouthpieces of the deep state or the establishment, whatever you want to call it. These are the people who still watch the BBC, who hang out on the comment section of the Guardian, things like this. And I've said this many times before about how it's only a small, relatively small, number of people who are actually believing all this shit. But that relatively small number of people has control still of our institutions and of the meta narratives. So I'm talking about Glastonbury, right? I mean, I've been meaning to do a video about music and comedy, talk about this in my book, about how they've been, both of those industries, well, the arts industry in general, have been sanitized beyond belief in the last, you could probably go back 20 years, I'd say my personal view, the last golden age of music was the mid-90s Britpop era. And then, between then and the mid-2000s, there was some decent music about nothing since then. So Glastonbury, well, for me, it's about music, isn't it? It's not about political messaging. It's not about social messaging. But what have we got now? An 80-year-old fella, Paul McCartney. The main attraction. He's 80. Some people like Paul McCartney. I think the Beatles are the most overrated band in the world, and I come from Liverpool, and I do think that. Got nothing against them, but I'm going off on a tangent there. But Paul McCartney, you've got a music festival, probably the world's most famous music festival in the country, that's probably done more for music than any country in the world. Certainly in comparison to the size of the country, and I'd be pretty confident in saying that with the bands that the UK has produced. a music festival with an 80-year-old rocker who's actually not a rocker at all. He's just a mouthpiece for the establishment. Maybe he's always been that, but he certainly is now. Unfurling a Ukrainian flag. Oh God, take that, box. If Paul McCartney was told by the people who were in charge of him, because he didn't do that off his own bat, he doesn't care. He doesn't know. Like all of us, he doesn't know what's going on there, and he certainly doesn't care. But if he was told by the people that matter to unfurl a Russian flag, he would do that. Similarly, Greta Thunberg, you know, the little jumped up, odious little goblin from Sweden. You know, that child, she's not a kid anymore, how old is she, 18, 19? That, as I say, odious, sanctimonious, stuck up. Apparently she's got autism, and I think she probably does, and I feel sorry for her in many ways, because she's clearly weaponised by the same dark forces to, again, I talk about this in my book, to scare children. She's not there to influence adults, because any adult with half a brain cell wouldn't pay any attention to her, or they'd pay attention, but they'd realise that, you know, her views are misplaced. They're not her own views. You know, anyone with a modicum of ability to be able to discern and to balance and to listen to different arguments, they would realise that what Greta Thunberg says is mostly a load of absolute bollocks, you know. But children don't have the ability to do that. So she is there to indoctrinate the next generation, children, into believing the planet's about to burn up. So, of course, roll her out. Yeah. I don't know what the reception for all this was like at Glastonbury. I don't know. What else was there? I think that Zelensky, you know, that corrupt Zelensky, the hero of Ukraine. No, he's not. He's quite demonstrably not. He's the opposite. But there's still people who can't appreciate that there's two sides to that story. Again, the same type of people who just fall for the absolute bollocks that the mainstream media spin. And I'll say it, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't like Vladimir Putin. I don't like any wars. I don't like attempted seizure of territories. I don't like violence. I don't ever believe that bloodshed is ever a reason for anything. Yeah. I believe all that. But there's two sides to that conflict in Ukraine, with the geopolitical tensions there, and the history, and the demographics, and the complexity is deep. But it's okay. Just get the Ukrainian flag out, get that Zelensky on, try and influence the people, whatever. And then what else was there? Lamar. I've forgotten all about him. I think he's been around for a few years, hasn't he? Again, is there anybody in the music industry? Is there anyone who's anti-establishment? I mean, properly anti-establishment? Is there? There's one or two, like, you know, Van Morrison, Ian Brown, Morrissey, Eric Clapton, maybe. The rest of them. It just shows how, you know, a lot of these bands who've been around since the 60s, like the Beatles, well, the one Beatle that's left, like, you know, the Stones and all the rest of them. I think Pink Floyd are in this category as well, and I'm a massive fan. That if the zeitgeist changes, it doesn't matter what the zeitgeist is, they'll just go with the establishment. I've realised now, the anti-establishment movement in the 60s was actually pro-establishment. There's not an anti-establishment about it, because times were good. Proper, true rebellion and subversiveness and taking on the establishment, you have to do it when times are tough, like now. Not when times are good. Anyone can be anti-establishment when times are good. Having said that, though, the music that was made back then, it actually had some message to it. Well, it's the best music that's ever been, you know, written. The bands that I've just mentioned before. But a lot of them are actually weak characters, aren't they? You know, because when told to, you will do this, you will say this, you won't say this. Paul McCartney won't play back in the USSR. Oh, it's going to make a really massive difference in the war with Ukraine, isn't it? Sorry, in the war with Russia. Yeah, that could be the key pivotal moment. It's pathetic. Pathetic. Cancel back in the USSR. Cancel Tchaikovsky. Cancel Chekhov. Cancel Dostoevsky. Cancel Tolstoy. Oh yeah, let's do that. I read something else as well, and I thought that's right. Someone said these sanctions that have been imposed on Russia, not sanctions on Russia at all, the sanctions on the West. When I read it, I thought, bang, that's it. It is. Nothing to do with sanctioning Russia. Anyway, so that Lamar who came on at the end, and I've not watched any of it. I just dip in. I have 2 minutes of mainstream media exposure every day just to keep abreast of what not inane, it's the wrong word, what insane, massively biased indoctrination they're coming out with. And I saw that he was wearing a crown of thorns with blood dripping down his face, gave a lecture on abortion and stormed off the stage, apparently. Again, I've not seen it, I'm not being adequate description. But the thing is, now you get to a point where you don't need to say, because you can predict what's going to happen. I could have predicted all that would have happened at Glastonbury. I could have predicted there'd be Zelensky there on a big screen, a Ukrainian flag making an appearance, Greta Thunberg, and someone saying something about how bad the Supreme Court's ruling on abortion is. Once you know, you know. Once you know, you know, and it's so easy to predict. They've got no creativity. That's the thing. That's why we say we on our side. Anyone who treasures the concepts like freedom and truth. So much more creativity. I don't even say intelligence, although yeah, we have got more of that, but creativity and spirit, and a meaning and an edge and a drive to, and a conviction and something that we hold dear. Well, they don't. A lot of people who useful idiots, and there's never underestimate how many of them there still are. There are a lot of them. They don't have any of that. Most of them are left-wing atheists, you know, who will reduce everything down to what they say is perfectly rational, and in many ways it is. It leaves no room for the mystery, for the imagination, for the possibility of something more than what we have, what we can see, and hear and feel. So that brings me on to the abortion thing. What I try to do in my videos is not really give my opinion on things. I just try and, well, I do, but it's because a lot of the time, not I don't have an opinion, I do. I can always see both sides to an argument, and I certainly can with this. The only situation I've ever experienced in my life where I've not been able to see both sides is COVID, because it was blatantly a lie. Other than that, everything, like the big topics of the day: climate change, Trump, Brexit, abortion. So I'm not going to give my view other than to say, and I'm not going to say I'm pro-abortion or pro-life, but I will say this: I find it disturbing, the conversation around abortion, and the reaction. You probably hear the seagulls there, and the reaction to this overturn in the Supreme Court. Well, my first thing would be, well, isn't that the highest kind of like echelons of democracy in the USA? So we've all got our opinions about democracy, but if it is going to be something that has to be a democratic decision, then at least acknowledge that there's at least a veneer of democracy. You can't say that you can't criticise Trump for what he did in the January the 6th storming of the Capitol building, and there's Who knows what happened there? But at the same time, say you're not going to respect that, because that means you're a hypocrite. But it's a difficult one for me, because to what extent should the state be sanctioned to have powers to intervene in these matters, in people's, it is bodily autonomy, and you know my views on state power, so I have concerns with that. Is it a step too far? But I want to come to, and I can see that, and I can certainly see the arguments for what the pro-abortion, the pro-abortionists. I get it. But what shocks me, and I find truly disturbing, is that I think in a healthy society, you actually wouldn't need to have any legislation. You wouldn't need it to be a discussion about what the state does or doesn't need to do. Yeah, and also you wouldn't need to. You would have, if people were morally centered enough. If you had a responsible, morally centered, enlightened society that had real aims and convictions and something to aim at, somewhere that they were going, a vision. Do you know what I mean? Something, maybe societies past, like, you know, in the age of the Enlightenment, the age of the Renaissance, you know, previous societies that have really thrived on creative ingenuity and a drive to improve. I think they have a deep respect for life. They treasure and cherish and protect and defend and nurture life. And I think there's a disturbing number of people, I think particularly in America, which is becoming, as far as I can see, but I've not been for a number of years, so I don't know this, it appears to be becoming more and more and more unhinged. My issue is, be pro-abortion, justify why you are, and you do have to. You have to think very deeply about it. And tell me, or tell us, and explain why. And explain why every single case is different and has to be judged on its individual merits. And I'll listen to you, and I'll agree with you sometimes, and other times, a lot of time I won't, and sometimes I will. But just sit down and think it through, and think what the repercussions are. Really consider the benefits and the drawbacks, and certainly consider from this point of view, even if you don't want to acknowledge, at least be prepared to listen to somebody who does acknowledge that in aborting a baby, a fetus, something that is living is being killed. Now, I don't have any judgment on you if you believe that's the right thing to do, and as I say, in some cases I can consider that it might be, but have some dignity, some respect, some understanding that there's a life there, there is a creation there that is truly unique and that is being extinguished for whatever reasons. So don't celebrate like they did in Ireland in 2018 in the abortion referendum. Don't do that. Don't be jumping up and down having parties, because that says one thing to me: It says that you're a morally defunct, hopeless, bereft, and deranged individual who places no meaning at all on anybody's life. And there's another thing that needs to be said. People talk a lot about women's rights and bodily autonomy. They're also the same people, and they always are, the most vehemently pro-abortionist. We need to protect women's rights, bodily autonomy, sovereignty, all the rest of it. I do get that argument, I completely do. Always the same ones who are the most rabidly supportive of mandatory vaccines. And isn't that interesting? And my final point to finish, it's when you realise in life that I've often struggled to take responsibility in my life. I still do sometimes, but I feel like I do in a very deep way now. But the deepest responsibility you can have in life is to protect those who can't or don't know how to defend and protect themselves. So the most vulnerable in society, another word that's used often. I mean, there's tens of millions, well, yeah, it's not tens, there's millions of people in this country saying they're vulnerable, vulnerable, vulnerable. Because they've been told they're vulnerable by their government. Now, most of them aren't vulnerable in the sense that they like to think they are, as in they're a victim. But there are people who are vulnerable, who do need some state intervention, community, interaction. And you're also thinking about old people at the, in the twilight of their life, who have slowed down, maybe struggling to look after themselves. They might be in a care home or they need looking after. And you're certainly talking about children, because they've not got the mental capacity to be able to understand these concepts. So you've got all that, but even more, I'll tell you who needs the most defending. And it's the living being, the baby, the fetus, that isn't able to voice at all. They can't cry. They can't wave their hands. They can't do anything. At least a baby can do that. An unborn baby can't even do that. But they have, in my mind, they have as much rights as I do, as you do, and as everybody does. I think that gets forgotten about, and I think that would only get forgotten about in a society that is at such a low point and is at the end of its decline and about to implode, which is where our society is at. Right at the end of the civilization as we know it, when this society becomes so narcissistic, so decadent, so selfish, and so lacking, as we talk about all the time, in purpose and spirituality, that these conversations would be so prevalent, and these approaches and these attitudes. So yeah, there we go, that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think of what I've said. Again, I respect everyone's views. I don't mind what anyone's views are on anything. But you need to have a little bit more respect, I think. I don't mean we, but the usual suspects, And we've got to keep fighting them in the best way that we can. You can't beat them with words, unfortunately. And we don't want to resort to violence. That's never the answer. So how we do it is by what we do and how we live our own lives, and that's how we influence. Right, okay, I'll speak to you all soon, and yeah, have a great day whatever you're doing. Bye bye.